Don't take RMDs or you'll pay more tax. In this episode, we're going to address the question, should I take money out of my IRAs or 401ks and when? And should I just take the minimum? Folks, the worst advice I hear is when people are told to take RMDs, the required minimum distribution. You're going to learn why. So my name is Doug Andrew, and I've been a retirement planning specialist for more than 45 years. And I've realized that most successful people who saved for retirement, are not usually in a lower tax bracket when they retire. If they were in a lower tax bracket, it's usually because they didn't save enough money. Folks, most people, I think, get tricked or duped, or they follow the herd and put their money into the company's 401k. They're told, oh yeah, you'll probably be in a lower tax bracket when you retire. Just deal with that down the road. And do you know that 91% of Americans put money into traditional IRAs and 401ks? Well, then what happens? They defer the tax to some future perceived unknown advantage. And they think, wait a minute, I could see the writing on the wall. Probably 5-10 years before retirement, I had enough saved that if I took out the money, especially even the required minimum, I was not going to be in a lower tax bracket. But they didn't know what else to do because they were now trapped. It's called the IRA 401k tax trap. Well, I helped many people free themselves from that tax trap by utilizing a strategy that I named a strategic rollout. Now, that's not a rollover. A rollover would be taking money from, let's say, a 401k and rolling it over into an IRA at retirement. You're continuing to defer, delay, postpone. What's another word? Procrastinate. When have you ever procrastinated and it turned out good? No, you don't want to procrastinate and put off. But this is what most people are told to do. And when they retire, I've had many people, even school teachers, that when they retired, because they socked away money in the state's 401k or in 403bs or in tax-shielded annuities, they hit retirement and they had this nice nest egg, maybe $250,000, $500,000, or $1 million over here. And then they got their defined benefit pension from teaching school 30 years, and they got 2% for every year of service. If they taught school for 30 years, that's 60% of their last best average paychecks for the last 5 years before they retired. And so most school teachers only got 60% of what their salary was just before they retired. And they thought, I can't get by on 60%. And so they socked away this money. That's good. But then they hit retirement and they go, wait a minute, I don't need that much money. I've got Social Security. Do I have to take it out? No, not till you're 70 and a half. Now the rule has recently been changed to age 72. You have another 18 months before you're required to take out at least what is called the required minimum distribution. It's based upon your LE. LE is life expectancy. Before, at age 70 and a half, if you didn't start taking out the R.M.D, the penalty is 50%. I have seen people be penalized 50%. If they were supposed to pull out 50 grand and they didn't, the penalty was 25,000 on top of the tax. And so folks, you don't want to be penalized. But people think, well then what's the minimum if I don't need the money? Now wait a minute here. You mean you're only taking it out if you need the money? What about tax strategies? Why don't you get it out, whether you need it or not, and get the taxes over and done with sooner than later? Because your current tax bracket is likely the lowest bracket you will ever be in. So why do you want to continue to postpone and delay the inevitable when we're all convinced taxes are going to be higher in the future? Well, now the age is age 72, but at age 72, your life expectancy is less. So let's say it was 20 years, you have to take out 1/20th of whatever is in your account. So if you had $1 million, you'd have to take out 50 grand that year. If you don't, you're penalized 50% on that. but people think of the minimum. Frankly, there is no maximum. So I'm going to share with you how to use room in your current tax bracket and get the taxes over and done with. You don't need to spend the money. You reposition the net after tax monies into vehicles that will be tax-free from now on. So let's use an actual example. A married couple filing a joint tax return. Back in the 1990s, the Clinton era, we had tax rates at 28% that had been instigated by President Reagan back in the 80s. And so that was based upon a certain income. Then what happened in 2001, because of 9/11, the terrorist attacks, we had to stimulate the economy. Bush lowered that tax rate from 28% down to 25%. And that actually created more tax revenue by lowering taxes because he was actually trying to stimulate the economy and he raised the revenue that was being taxed. That's another topic. But during that time period, I had a lot of people take money out of their IRAs and 401ks faster than they needed it to get taxes over and done with at a 25% rate because it was temporary. It was going to go back up again. It was going to sunset and go right back up again to 28. So I said, get the money out at 25, even if you're in a 3% higher bracket. I remember some people who were in a 28%, and if they took out an additional $57,000 20 years ago, they might pay 31% on that last 57. And they say, oh no, you just raised my tax bracket. Only on the last 57,000, that's 3%. Do you know that 3% on 57,000 was something like $1,700? Well, hello. They said, no, we don't want to pay an extra 3% in tax. I'm going, it's probably the lowest rate you'll ever get. Well, a few months later, the market crashed 40%, and they came back and begged if they could somehow retroactively pull out and pay the tax when it was worth this, or when their account values were higher and get it out. Well, the opposite is actually true. When account values are less, that is the time to make sure you get taxes over and done with when it's worth less and reposition it into vehicles that are going to grow tax-free. You want to ride the market back up again on a tax-free basis. This requires what we call a strategic rollout. So when you take money out, you can do that starting after age 59 and a half. And now you don't have a 10% penalty when you access the money. Many people, when I showed them, if they rolled the money out over, let's say, a 5-year period, the taxes would be over and done with in 5 years. Now it's repositioned into a tax-free laser fund, and they are able to accumulate and access their money forever after tax-free. They're immune from taxes going up, and they ended up with sometimes double and triple the net spendable retirement income rather than continuing to take the minimum distributions. They were blown away when they saw the darkness of the night, so to speak, if they kept deferring taking R.M.Ds versus if they got the money out faster in 5 years. The taxes over with, repositioned into a vehicle that's tax-free from that point forward. And actually, at the end of the day, because they chose the laser fund, they were reimbursed every dime that they paid in taxes when they passed it on to their non-spousal heirs or even to their spouse. Most IRAs or 401ks, if you die now and you leave it to your children, they must get it out and pay the tax within 10 years. That's the new rule. So what are the key takeaways? First of all, don't get duped into thinking that by continuing to defer forever in what used to be called a stretch IRA strategy, where you take the minimum, the required minimum, it's called an R.M.D, and string that out through your life expectancy. If you don't need the money, you have to take it out or get penalized. But don't take the minimum, because I can show you, in fact, we have the only software on the planet, I think, that still exists that shows you how much you'll pay in tax the rest of your life. And then if you leave it to your partner, your spouse, how much they'll pay. And then you leave it to your children and they string it out over 10 years, how much they'll pay. People are flabbergasted with the amount of taxes they will pay. If there's $500,000 in there, they see that more than $500,000 will be paid out in tax by continuing to defer. And people will say, why does CNBC tell you to do this then? Well, who's funding CNBC? Government revenuers. Why would they want to destroy a partnership where if you keep deferring as long as possible, they get 1/3 of everything you will ever earn on that? Why not buy them out? Why not get rid of that partner, pay the tax? So I've had many people do it in a 5-year period. I saved them $250,000. I have several people that I've saved them $500,000 to $600,000. I'm thinking of a couple last year, a physician and his wife. We saved them $1.2 million. We couldn't save them all $2.6 million because they have over $5 million in IRAs and 401ks. But at least I saved them money that they were going to shell out in unnecessary tax. This is called a strategic rollout. I want you to click on this episode here and learn, when you do a strategic rollout, where do you put the after-tax money so that now you accumulate it tax-free from now on. You actually get reimbursed at the end of the day when you pass away for the taxes you paid, and how you can prevent yourself from ever losing due to market volatility. That's why I call it the laser fund. Liquid assets safely earning returns spells the acronym LASER. So click on this episode and I want you to receive a free copy of my book, The Laser Fund. You just pay $5.95 shipping and handling. I'll buy the book.